Hey everyone, welcome everybody. Welcome to Bridging the Gap. My name is Marilyn and I am your host. We have a special guest today. His name is Ziad. He is a pre-medical and biomedical engineering student at Columbia University. Ziad recently graduated and will be attending Harvard Medical School this fall. I had the opportunity to interview Ziad and learn about his STEM journey, learn about his time living in Lebanon, and also just his pre-medical journey at Columbia University. Additionally, I'll be sure to upload the audio version of this interview to Apple Podcasts. There's this really cool podcast out there called Bridging the Gap Maryland. Definitely head over there and you'll find the audio version of this interview. I'll also put the link in the description box so you can just click on it and it'll take you over there. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Okay, enough of me talking. Let's get into this amazing interview. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today on Bridging the Gap, Ziad. Tell us about yourself and where you're from.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to talk to you and to share more about my experience. So my name is Ziad Saade. I am 21 years old. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon. So that's where I spent most of my life. I moved to the US when I was 18 for college. So that's when I started attending Columbia and I majored in biomedical engineering at Columbia. Just graduated last week and then I'm off to medical school in the summer.
Yes. So obviously you are interested in medicine. So I want to ask you, what fostered your interest in STEM at a young age, and how did your high school experience later on help you narrow down your interests?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because my interest in STEM actually started with math. So I really enjoyed math when I was in middle school and high school, and it was like always a very like enjoyable experience to like learn about like more in-depth calculus concepts and stuff like that. And then one day I like was doing a project about stem cells, and then I randomly realized that like math could be applied to biological concepts through statistics or like through applied physics and applied math. And I came across course online about quantitative physiology, which basically like uses math as a tool to understand biological systems. And I thought that was like incredibly interesting because it was like utilizing math, which is something that I really enjoy in order to understand hands-on biological concepts. And that's sort of like what drew me to STEM and then to biomedical engineering, which is like heavily dependent on this like use of STEM topics in order to better understand biology and to innovate in that field. So I think this is like where my interest in STEM comes from. That's why I like really enjoyed like all the math and physics classes at Columbia, and that's definitely like how it started in high school.
Yes. So you mentioned that you are from Lebanon. Tell us a little bit about your experience growing up in Lebanon and how you feel it helped to shape your upbringing.
Right. So I think so one thing about Lebanon is it's a trilingual country. So in the country, there are three main languages that are spoken: Arabic, French, and English. So I think this was very interesting from like a very young age, being exposed to like so many different languages that are like spoken in society, and that like really developed in me a passion for languages. So I like went on and learned more languages during my middle school and high school years. I learned Spanish on my own. I learned Italian, German, and then when I was at Columbia, I learned Mandarin. So I think this is like one really important like characteristic that growing up in Lebanon has given me. It's this curiosity about different languages and different cultures that has been like present in my life for like the past 10, 15 years really. And it has really like allowed me to appreciate cultural and linguistic diversity. And I have I like really enjoy applying that to the medical field. I'm a medical interpreter, so I like help people whose first language isn't English overcome language barriers to get care. And yeah, I think this growing up in Lebanon was a very unique linguistic experience that has made my passion for languages even stronger.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I know you already touched on this, but I want to get back to it. So what developed your passion for biomedical engineering, and what made you declare this field of study as your major at Columbia?
Yeah, so for that one, again, like it was
Mhm.
I didn't really understand what biomedical engineering meant, to be fully honest with you, until I came to Columbia. So my
Mhm.
reasoning was that I really enjoyed math, really enjoyed physics, and going into college, I basically like wanted to do something that was very biology focused, but I couldn't conceive my college education without having a math focus. So that was something that like, if the other alternative would have been to go into CC and focus maybe on bio or biochem. In that case, I would not have had the like strong mathematics background that I got in biomedical engineering. So initially, it was really like I would say more of a practical choice because it turned out that biomedical engineering focused on the topics and the classes that I enjoy. Um, but I didn't fully understand what it meant until I got to Columbia. And then when I started like learning more about the field towards my like sophomore and junior year, I really enjoyed like how it uses basic science as a tool to understand biological and medical concepts. And that's something that like that really interests me, and that like a lot of the research that I've done at Columbia is related to biomedical engineering in that sense. So it really like started as like more of a practical choice given my like high school interests and like what I enjoyed learning in high school. And then it really developed into like something that like I'm passionate about from a more medical lens.
This leads me to my next question. What research work were you interested in on campus, and how did this further shape your interest in your field of study?
I've done a few research projects on and off campus, and I think a common theme in all of them has been really like merging engineering and medicine. So one thing that like I've really enjoyed doing in my research is sort of like using engineering as a tool to understand medical concepts and to strive for innovation. So, for example, one of the like research projects that I worked on was at a startup company named Okin. It's a biotech startup in New York where I've worked for 2 summers that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to basically overcome some medical challenges. For example, one project I worked on was uh, developing a machine learning predictive model for COVID-19 where like for example a nurse or an ER doctor puts in the patient's chest CT, and the algorithm, by using thousands and thousands of data points that were collected, will give the doctor or the nurse a risk score for COVID-19 complications. So we're basically like using machine learning as a tool to better predict the outcome of patients in order to better personalize care. So this is sort of like one example of a research project I've worked on, and it shows how like my background as an engineer is used as a tool to better enhance the care of patients at the hospital. So sort of like this whole idea of engineering as a tool, engineering for humanity, that like I've cultivated at Columbia, and that has been a lot of my focus in my research.
Yes. So, what clubs were you involved in on campus, and how did they help mold you into who you are? What aspects did you enjoy about each club?
So I think during my time at Columbia, clubs weren't my main focus. I mostly focused on like school research, and frankly, like enjoying New York City was a big part of my time at Columbia. I was part of a few clubs, mostly One for the World, which is a club that I was part of when I was in my sophomore year, which I really was like interested in. It's a group of students that basically create a students network all across the US of people that are willing to donate 1% of their future income to alleviate world poverty. So it used to be a national, now it's a worldwide organization that like partners with local NGO in order to like get the funds of this 1% from college students into local NGOs around the world to help alleviate extreme poverty. So that's something that I worked on campus, where like I tried to like create a network of students that like wanted to pledge in order to donate that 1%. And that was very interesting because it like showed me that alleviating extreme poverty is a doable goal, which is something that like, it sounds very like far-fetched in terms of like, oh, there is, but there actually is a way to do that if enough people like pledge to donate. And that was like a really powerful idea for me, and bringing people together that like are all passionate to like basically solve that huge issue around the world was something that I like was really interested in. And it also like created a community of people on campus that are interested in like humanitarian work and helping others. So that was a good club that like allowed me to get a sense of community. And then another club I was a part of is the Columbia Arab Students Association, Tura. That was more of a cultural club where like we gathered to basically do cultural events and like bring in the Arab community on campus. Um, yeah, that was a very fun experience, honestly, that like allowed me to like meet new people on campus and also create a community.
Yes, that's awesome. So, what do you hope to accomplish when you go to medical school and also post medical school? And what are certain things that you would like to focus on to ensure that they get reformed in the medical field during your own journey?
That's a good question. I think during medical school, I really would like to focus on like finding my specialty that like I am fully passionate about. I already have a few ideas, but like I think the 4 years of medical school are really a time for students to engage with different parts of medicine, to be curious, and to like keep an open mind about different specialties in order to choose the one that they're most passionate about. So I think my short-term goal is to be as open-minded and as curious as possible about all sides of medicine. I don't want to come into medical school thinking I know what I want to do and then like blindly not being curious about other parts of medicine that I might love. So that's been my main short-term goal. And then in terms of more long-term goal, the specialty I'm interested in right now is oncology, and that's something that I'm really like personally passionate about. Like cancer care is something that like I have been wanting to dedicate my life to for a long time. So my long-term goal, and that's a bit of a far-fetched goal, it's more of like a dream. It's to like um, basically utilize machine learning to make cancer care as efficient as possible in order for cancer care to be as minimally invasive as possible, as easy as possible for the patients and their families. So this is like my long-term ambition of like basically making the nightmare of cancer care part of history and not part of science anymore.
Right. Yes. I really like that. So then that brings me to my like next question. So being an international student who will be attending medical school in the United States, how would you describe this opportunity for yourself?
So first of all, I think it was definitely a hard journey. Like applying as an international student is like particularly hard, and like there's not a big community of international students applying to medical school, so it can be a bit isolating being part of that world. But it's very like rewarding to have like an acceptance. I'm very grateful for that. So I, I think it's really important to like understand how medicine is practiced in different countries. And that's something that as an international student, I can appreciate more because I have seen medicine being practiced differently in my home country for 18 years. And then coming into the US, I'm sort of like seeing how it is practiced here, how the interaction between physicians and patients is different from back home because of the culture, because of how the healthcare system works. So I do think that being an international student sort of like gives me this more holistic view about medicine, where like I have a diversity of perspectives on the medical and healthcare field that some people who have not seen how medicine is practiced abroad would maybe not have. So and I'm really excited to sort of like delve into that new perspective as part of the healthcare team, because so far it's just been me like observing as someone who is shadowing or someone who's like working at the hospital but not as part of the care delivering team. So I think it will be interesting to sort of like be on the healthcare delivery team and understand how it works on that side in the US.
So, leading to my next question, how did you structure yourself to achieve like all of your goals? And what advice will you give others listening to or watching this interview who are also interested in achieving similar goals?
Yeah, so I think one important thing, which it sounds a little bit cliche, but I cannot emphasize how important that is to do what you love, like throughout the years of pre-med and college. Like, I think a lot of pre-med get tangled in the idea of tailoring the perfect application, and that spending a lot of time thinking about how to perfect an application that you're going to do in 3 years doesn't allow you to fully understand what you're passionate about. So one advice that I would give every pre-med who's interested to apply to medical school is to really focus on what they want to do, on what they love to do. If there's a club that you want to be a part of, then do it because you love it, because you're passionate about it. If there's a research project you want to do it because that's something that interests you, not because it looks good on an application. I think that's an important distinction because, of course, every pre-med at some point in their journey thinks about what would look good on my application. But after applying, after going through the whole process, I realized that the activities that are the most meaningful to me, the ones that are the most powerful on my application, are not the ones where I thought that this would look great, therefore I did it. They're the ones that I did because I was passionate about it. And I think that's a really important distinction. So that's the main advice. Like, if you do what you love and what you're passionate about, that's going to show and that's going to be powerful. So, and it's also going to make you happy, right? During the pre-med years, if you do what you love, it roots you in the present in a way that doing something that you don't love cannot do. So yeah, I think that'd be my advice.
I definitely agree with that. So I guess before I pose my last question to you, Ziad, I just want to say congratulations on graduating. So are you working on any interesting passion projects at the moment? Or how do you look forward to spending your summer before attending Harvard Medical School?
So I think I'm gonna relax as much as possible since it's my maybe my last summer being fully free. So I'm trying to take advantage of that. But I'm also taking time to do some mentorship. So I am part of F1 Doctors, which is an NGO that helps international students get mentorship to apply to med school for free. So I am helping other fellow international students who are planning to apply to med school. I think it's a good time to give back, given that I've had incredible mentors who have helped me during my application cycle. So I've been doing that during my free time, but that's the main project I'm working on right now.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us today on Bridging the Gap, Ziad. It was a pleasure to hear about your background and just your pre-med journey throughout, Colombia. Good luck with medical school, and I cannot wait to see what else you accomplish in the future.
Thank you so much for hosting this.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to head to Apple Podcasts and check out that really cool podcast called Bridging the Gap, Marilyn. You will find the audio version of this interview over there. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so that you're alerted when I release future videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Peace.